I've actually used that text in some of my podcasts on the Trinity that the Christians are not liking on my YouTube. They don't rate it very high at all. They think I'm completely asinine with that information. But, oh well, that just shows to go you. Not everyone interprets things the same. No chance, no how, man. Well, what Eisenman does, what he proclaims, using the internal evidence of the scrolls themselves. Now, I like that. See, that was Nibley's method with the Book of Mormon. Let the texts speak for themselves, and then from that internal data, let's decide where they belong. That's good methodology. Well, Eisenman does that with the scrolls. He contends that the scrolls represent the enemies of Paul. It is their viewpoint against Paul. We know he had enemies, but we don't know where the writings were. Eisenman contends the Dead Sea Scrolls are those writings. Well, now that makes him extremely interesting and relevant. He may or may not be right or wrong. I don't care about that at this point. What about what he's saying? What evidences does he deduce and bring out? And how does that fit with the overall picture? Well, it's pretty impressive. Quite interesting. And I'll touch on him. Elaine Pagels on Gnosticism. Well, this Gospel of Judas. Hey, the Gospel of Judas came out, 3-4 years ago, and now everybody's jumping on that bandwagon, man. But it's changing the way we perceive the New Testament. We're in the same boat, in other words. So I'm going to give you some inkling of what kind of boat we're in when we talk about historical context. Elaine Pagels showed in her interview with Bill Moyers, I have that with me, A World of Ideas, great book. He interviews all kinds of different scientists, sociologists, historians. It was fabulous. Good collection of materials. Very thought-provoking. I love books like that. Moyers made his name interviewing Joseph Campbell, you know, and that's where that the Joseph Campbell Power of Myth came from. Another really good read. No, not bad. Well, anyway, Elaine Pagels said when she got back into early Christianity, she didn't find it the simple, pastoral, pristine, singular movement that the religious image has produced for history. Oh no, there were a lot of wrangling, fighting, bickering sects of Christianity. Robert Eisenman brings that out powerfully. There were Sadducees, Pharisees, Zadokites, Zealots, Essenes, Ebionites, Nazarites, Zadokim. Oh man, there was all kinds of groups of people, Gentiles, whoever. It was astonishing. Yes, even hypocrites. Just like Jesus said. So this is not a simple picture. This is not an easy series of videos to make for that reason. Thousands of videos can be made on just this topic alone. What I want to do is approach it as a rationalistic or realistic basis. Try to give us some sort of a, boy, there goes someone in a hurry. Woohoo, I'm doing the speed limit. Anyway, 65 ain't fast enough for some people. They have to do 95. Idiots. Anyway, in the process of building up this background, this historical context in the New Testament, which is technically a continuation of the Old Testament, and yet it is a breakoff of Judaism and Gnosticism and Manichaeism and Mandaeanism and the Elkosites, the Thibionites. There are all kinds, the Naassenes, there are all kinds of sects in early Christianity that we don't get to hear about because they were excluded from the New Testament. We love to give the canon priority. That's not necessarily the case these days. The scholars are even calling for a complete redefinition of all of the categories: Scripture, canon, pseudepigrapha, apocrypha, false writings, so on and so forth. They're saying those are our modern conventional terms, definitions, to try to get a handle on the enormity of the amount of writings that have come out now. But they're wrong. We can't do it that way. To these ancient peoples, that's not how they viewed their Scripture. All of this was Scripture at one time or another by one group of Jews or Christians at one time or another. Our Bible should be 10 times larger than it is right now. Now, we have fallen for the, well, we've accepted, I shouldn't say fallen, accepted. We've accepted the idea that only the historical is real and valuable. And that's why we accept our New Testament today. That's not how the early Christians viewed it at all. They had spiritual, mystical teachings also. The mystics were big on that. the Merkava mystics, especially the Hasidim. So anyway, I'm going to give you a flavor from the New Testament times, and it's probably not going to do you Christians any favors, because your ministers won't touch this stuff. It's too bad. It's pretty sad that they won't. But they're not interested in telling you history. They want to promote your faith. And my belief is, the more truth you learn, the stronger your faith will be. And it does no good to ignore these documents pretending like they don't exist so that they'll go away. No, they're here to stay, all right. They're all over the place now, but it's a huge subject. It is a very interesting subject. It is a very controversial subject. Everyone has different views of Jesus, of Paul, of the Gospels. Yeah, Helmut Kester, I've got his book also, another fabulous New Testament scholar, man. Helmut Kester on the ancient Christian Gospels. At one time there were 89 ancient Christian Gospels. Elaine Pagels has shown in her research how the reason only 4 of them made the cut is because they represent the 4 directions, north, south, east, and west. That's the only reason only 4 of them got in the canon. Well, that's no reason to reject all the others. I mean, the book of Enoch was quoted 128 times in the New Testament, even by Jesus Christ himself, and yet it's nowhere in the New Testament. It's nowhere in the Old Testament. In the Western Christianity, Enoch was thrown out. It's ridiculous how we treat these concepts. So, get ready to rock and roll. Get ready to see your paradigm be adjusted. Now, if you're comfortable with your little fantasy made-up world, don't watch these videos. Because the fantasy made-up world of what we suppose Christianity was, that is all under a complete revolution of relearning. Now we have all kinds of new materials from that day and age that show us we were never more wrong. William G. Dever, in his book, Did God Have a Wife? He says that there is an absolute revolution where all concepts that we believe, they are going to be outdated. He meant that basically about ancient Israel. Well, the same thing is applying now to the New Testament itself. And that can be sobering. I have news for you. It is not what we know that is the reality. It is what we don't know. I have 75, 80 books with me. Hundreds of more in my library at home. If you haven't read any of these books, the vast majority of your information and knowledge about these subjects is totally blank. You are 100% ignorant if you haven't read the books. That's the fact. Well, New Testament studies is just roaring right now. I photocopied off hundreds of scholarly articles out of the Journal of New Testament Studies, the Journal of Pseudepigraphic Studies, and so on and so forth. Criminy! The journals are just exploding in size and quality of scholarship and all that because everything is being reassessed. Nothing more so than the Gnostics. Karen King, well, you got the Gnostic of the Gospel, the Gnostic text, the Gospel of the Gospel of Mary Magdalene. You got the Pistis Sophia and the books of Jehu, which I forgot to bring. I was going to bring those. They're fascinating. You got the Gospel of Philip. You got the secret Gospel of John. You got the Apocryphon of James, the secret book. The Apocryphon is secret, hidden book of James. On and on and on and on and on. You've got the hypothesis of the archons. You've got the exegesis of the soul. You have the tripartite Tractatus. It is astonishing how much we have that we know nothing about.